Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today we're on lesson 6.1.2. So again, if you're able to print out the lesson worksheets, they're in MyConnect. If not, you can always write the problems, or for some problems you would just write your work and the answer for on a separate sheet of paper. Today we're going to continue to write equations in the y equals mx plus b form. These are going to be in the format that we'll most likely see when we're doing this. So this is the standard form, and we're going to change it to the y equals mx plus b form. So for letter A, remember I'm trying to get y standing all by itself on the left side of the equal sign. I'll go ahead and draw my line there so I can see the left side and the right side of the equation. So the first thing I want to get rid of is this positive 8x, and the way that I would get rid of a positive 8x chunk is to subtract 8x. On the left side it's going to cancel out, and then I'm left with 4y equals, and if you remember from yesterday's lesson, positive 2 and negative 8x are not like terms because one has an x and one does not, so I can't just add or subtract them together. I have to keep them separate. And because I want my final answer to look like y equals the x chunk first and then a regular number, I'm going to put negative 8x first and then plus 2 since it's a positive 2. So now I'm almost there. I have one last step. I want y standing alone, so I do the opposite of what's happening to y. Right now this says 4 times y, so the opposite of multiplying would be dividing. So now I'm left with my y equals, and then I have to divide both of these chunks by 4. So negative 8 divided by 4 is negative 2. So negative 8x divided by 4 is negative 2x. And then here I would have 2 divided by 4. Since the smaller number's on top, this is going to end up being a fraction answer. And if I simplify this fraction by dividing the top and the bottom by 2, what would I end up with? 1/2. So the final answer would be y equals negative 2x plus 1/2. Okay, go ahead and try the next one. I'll give you a minute to try it. You can even pause this video and then turn it back on, and I'll show you how to do letter B. Okay, for letter B, I'm doing the same steps. So the first step was to cancel out the x chunk. Make sure you say that we still have a negative 3y. That negative sign goes with the 3y. I forgot to draw my line. And then I want to put my x chunk first, and then my number chunk. My last step is to divide by negative 3. So I have y equals negative 12 divided by negative 3. That would make a positive 4. And since there's an x, it'd be 4x. And then this would make a fraction. So it's 7 over negative 3 is going to be my fraction. I can't reduce that, but it's okay to leave it as an improper fraction, which means the number on the top is bigger. So I'm going to have minus 7/3. So notice I took the negative that's below here, and I just said minus 7/3. Okay, looking at the next section, it says, what is the missing term in each sequence? So I'm looking at these tables and I'm trying to figure out what would go in the missing spots. And they give us hints. They say this is an arithmetic sequence. An arithmetic sequence means it's an adding or subtracting pattern. then this one says, hint, this is a geometric sequence. A geometric sequence means that there's a multiplying pattern. Okay, and what I did here, see how here the n and the tn values, that's just another way of saying x and y. So we can just think of that as an x and a y table. See how here my x values go 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just looking for a pattern. And then over here, my x values go 1, 5, 10, 23. So what I did here was I made another table where the x values go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's easier to find the pattern. Okay, so if I know that this is an adding or subtracting pattern, I want to say, what's the total difference from 1 to -7? It looks like I'm going to be subtracting. And so let's see, 0 to -7, that would be a difference of -7. 1 to -7 is going to be one more than that. So the total difference, I'm subtracting 8. And how many jumps am I taking? I'm taking 1, 2, 3, 4 jumps. So I want to divide this total difference by 4. So figure out, if I divide -8 by 4, how much would I be taking away each time? You should have said -2. So now go ahead and fill out the table, subtracting 2 each time. Okay, I'll go ahead and write the answers in. Here it says, to find the 23rd term, write the equation and plug 23 in for x. So I want you guys to go ahead and write the equation. It's going to be in y equals mx plus b form. Remember, m is my growth. So I would say, how much is this growing by each time? And b is my y-intercept, or my 0th term. And that would be, what would the 0 value be? So I know if I have 1, it would be a 1 here. To move back to 0, let's see, if the pattern is -2 and I want to move up in the table, I'm going to do the opposite and I'm going to add 2. So if I say 1 plus 2, I would have 3 here. So this is your, it's called the 0th term. It's also the y-intercept, or the starting value. So go ahead and see if you can find, write the equation. Here's what we should have come up with. And then it says to find the 23rd term, I'm going to plug 23 in for x. So go ahead and plug 23 in for x and see what you get for y. Remember, if you want to use a calculator, that's fine. Okay, you can always stop the video if you need more time. We should have ended up with -46 plus 3 And negative 46 plus 3 would give me negative 43. Okay, and the reason that we wanted to find the 23rd term is because that's what the original problem is asking for here, the 23rd term. So if I plug 23 in for x, I get negative 43 for y. This is something that we're going to talk more about in chapter 2, or not chapter 2, the next chapter that we do. So this is kind of an introduction. Part B, now I know that I'm multiplying, so I'm trying to figure out what am I multiplying by each time. So one way to do that is I can say 10 times what? Let's use m because I'm multiplying. 10 times what equals 18? Because I want to say 10 times what would give me 18. Now if I look at that equation and I want to solve for m, we would do the opposite of what's happening to m. So right now it says m times 10, we would divide by 10. Go ahead and find what m equals. You should have come up with 1.8. So that is what I'm multiplying by. So what I would want to do is take 32.4 and multiply by 1.8, and that will give me my 4th term here. Go ahead and use a calculator. And we should end up with 58.32. So again, this is an introduction for next chapter. We'll get into sequences. We'll talk more about sequences. All right, on the back side here, problem 6-17. This says, Aura currently pays $800 each month to rent her apartment. Due to inflation, however, her rent is increasing by $50 each year. I'm going to use yellow to highlight her information. So she currently pays $800 each month. Her rent is increasing by $50 each year. Meanwhile, her monthly take-home pay is $1,500, and she predicts that her monthly pay will only increase by $15 each year. So I shouldn't have highlighted her name in yellow because the whole problem is talking about Aurora. But the yellow talks about rent, and the pink talks about her take-home pay. Okay, I want you guys to write an equation to represent both situations. And you're going to write the equation in the y equals mx plus b form. Okay, please pause the video here while you write to both of your equations, and then turn the video back on and we'll review the answers. All right, so for her rent, we're looking for y equals mx plus b. I know my m, there we go. My m value is the growth. So here it's increasing by $50 each year. So that'd be positive 50 for my growth. And then the b value is the starting value. So we're starting with, it costs $800 each month. And the take-home pay, the growth, it's increasing by 15 each year, so that's a positive 15. Remember, if it said decreasing, we would use a negative number there. And it's currently at $1,500. There we go. Here it says, set the mx plus b part of each equation equal to each other. Here's my mx plus b part. Since those both equal y, I can set them equal to each other. That way I'll be able to solve for x. In order to solve an equation for one variable or letter, I can only have one letter in the equation. So now I only have x's, so I can solve for x. Go ahead and pause the video and solve for x. Okay, I have x's on both sides of my equation. So my first step I want to do is canceling out one of the x chunks. I'm going to cancel out the smaller x chunk because then I'll still have a positive value for x, but you could do it either way. So if we take 15x away, 50x's minus 15x's would leave me with 35x plus 800 equals 1,500. And then I ran out of room, so I'm going to have to keep working over here. Okay, my next step is going to be to subtract 800 from both sides of the equal sign. And now I have 35x equals 700. My last step would be to divide by 35, and x equals 20. So now let's go back to the problem and read what the question is. So it says, assuming that her rent and her take-home pay will continue to grow linearly, that means it continues to grow at the same rate each month, will her rent ever equal her take-home pay? If so, when? And how much will her rent be how much will her rent be that year? So here, this tells me when. So 20 is the answer to when her rent and her take-home pay will be the same. And I want to go back when I'm talking about the when and say, am I talking about months or years? And the answer to that, so in this problem we have months and we have years. But since the increase is happening each year, it's going to be in 20 years. So in 20 years, her rent and her take-home pay will be the same. So that means she's definitely going to want to get another job where she's making more money, or she would want to move somewhere where she has to pay less for rent before 20 years. And then the second question is, how much will her rent be? So if I plug this 20 in for x into either of these equations and solve for y, y is going to tell me how much rent she pays. So let's just plug it in here. So y equals 15 times 20 plus 1,500. Go ahead and push pause and figure out what y equals. Okay, let's see, 15 times 20. I know 15 times 2 is 30, so 15 times 20 I would add an extra 0, plus 1,500. Y equals 1,800, and remember, for how much, we're talking about dollars. So here's our two answers. And notice how we went back and reread the questions at the end to make sure that we found the answers that they were asking us for. Here, 6-20, it says, graph the lines y equals x plus 2 and y equals 2x minus 1 on the same set of axes. What is their point of intersection? Okay, I'll give you guys a minute to do that. Go ahead and pause the video and then come back when you're done. Okay, to graph the first line, remember when there's no number in front of x, there's an invisible one. And if I want to make that a fraction so that it's my slope, I can say 1 over 1. So I start with my y-intercept, which is 2. And then my slope is 1 over 1. So that tells me to go up 1 over 1, up 1 to the right 1, up 1 to the right 1. Notice I did that a few times so that I can make my line as accurate as possible. Whenever I have two lines and I'm looking to see where they intersect, I want to make sure that my lines are very accurate so I get the correct point where they intersect. For the next line, I can put this 2 over a 1 again to make it a fraction, so it's the rise over the run for the slope. I start with the y-intercept. That's where the line crosses the y-axis at -1. And then the slope says to go up 2 to the right 1. Up 2 to the right 1. And I'm going to keep going until I see, oh, here's the point where the lines cross. So I know I have the correct point. So their point of intersection I have to write as an ordered pair. And it's always the x value and then the y value. So to get to this point, I run to 3 and I jump up to 5. That would be the answer there. Okay, now your independent practice today is going to be writing these problems in the slope-intercept form. That means y equals mx plus b. And it's just like what we did here on the first page. They're the same format as these two problems on the first page that we did together. There's two problems I just want to show you. Number 8 says y equals 2. I'm going to go back to the graph on the previous page and show you what y equals 2 would look like. Y equals 2 means every single point on this line has a y value of 2. So I'm going to make up 2 points that have a y value of 2. It doesn't matter what their x value is. It could be anything. I'm going to say 0 and 5. I just made up those values. I'm going to plot these 2 points, and that will give me the line y equals 2. So 0, 2, which was already a point I had here, and 5, 2. Here is my line y equals 2. And you guys should go ahead and do this on your paper so you can use it as reference. I'm going to highlight this in yellow. And then I'm going to highlight y equals 2 in yellow. So now I can come back to this page. If I ever have a y equals a number line, I'll remember how to graph it. Notice the line goes the opposite direction of the y-axis. So the y-axis goes up and down. Y equals a number goes horizontal, and it goes right through where y equals 2. So if they're asking me for the slope and the y-intercept for y equals 2, the slope of a flat line, remember if you think back to the comics that we made that are on the wall in the classroom, the slope, that's the flat line, is slope equals 0. So back to this page, the slope would equal 0. And then the y-intercept, the line crosses the y-axis at 2. So that point is 0, 2. Okay, so now that's the page here that says A. Go to the last page out of all of our worksheets today, and I want to show you what this would look like. X equals 4. So I'm going to go back to the graph, and I'm going to do this one in pink. X equals 4 means that every point on the line has an x value of 4. So I'm going to make 2 points with an x value of 4, and then I'm going to make up any value for y. It doesn't matter. So I just made up those 2 y values. You could make up different ones if you wanted. And I'm going to plot 4, -5. And 4, 3. And connect those 2 points. And then I'm going to make that one pink. And highlight that pink. So now I can use this as a reference sheet if I ever have an equation that's y equals a number or x equals a number. So notice x equals a number goes the opposite direction of the x-axis. Here's the x-axis. It goes the opposite direction. It's vertical. So the slope, if you remember, of a vertical line, the slope is undefined. And then if you notice, this line does not cross the y-axis. So there's no y-intercept. These 2 lines are parallel, so they'll never cross. So my slope would be, if I go back to the very last page here, my slope would be undefined, and my y-intercept would be, we could say none, we could say there isn't one, there's no y-intercept. Okay, I'm gonna have you guys do these last 2 pages independently and then check your answers with the answers key that I put on MyConnect. All right, good luck, have a great day.